Captain Nix Voss stood at the observation deck of the Rachnerry vessel, Starweaver, his crystalline eyes fixed on the blue-green planet spinning slowly below. Earth, as its inhabitants called it, had captured his attention for the past 3 cycles. What had started as a routine survey mission had evolved into something far more concerning. "Captain," called out his sensor specialist, Zara 10, her voice carrying a slight tremor. "You need to see these readings." Nix moved gracefully across the deck, his iridescent scales reflecting the soft ambient lighting. The Rachnerry were known throughout the galaxy for their careful, methodical approach to first-contact situations, but nothing in their extensive archives had prepared them for what they were witnessing on Earth. The holographic display showed a time-lapse of human military development over the past century. The rate of technological advancement was unprecedented, from primitive combustion engines to nuclear power in mere decades. What took other species millennia, humans had achieved in the equivalent of a single Rachnerry lifetime. "Have you verified these findings?" Nix asked, his inner eyelids blinking rapidly as he processed the information. "3 times, Captain. The humans aren't just advancing, they're accelerating. Their weapons technology alone has evolved more in the past 50 years than most species manage in 1,000. Nix felt a cold sensation crawl down his spine. The Rachnerry High Council had tasked him with determining whether Earth was ready for first contact. Now, he wasn't sure if the galaxy was ready for humanity. "Show me the biological data again," he commanded, bringing up another holographic display. The human genome scrolled before him, a complex tapestry of resilience and adaptability. Unlike the Rachnerry, who had evolved in the stable environment of their homeworld, humans had somehow thrived in virtually every climate their planet offered. "Their endurance is remarkable," Zara noted, highlighting a section of data. "They can survive extreme temperature variations, recover from severe injuries, and their bodies can adapt to almost any environment. Some specimens have even survived radiation doses that would kill any other known sentient species." Nix's crystalline eyes narrowed. "And their psychological profile? That's the most disturbing part, Captain. They appear to be driven by equal parts curiosity and aggression. They'll risk death simply to understand how something works, yet they've developed weapons capable of destroying their entire civilization multiple times over." The captain moved back to the observation window, watching as the night side of Earth came into view. Countless pinpricks of light marked their cities, a testament to their mastery over their environment. But something else caught his attention. The orbital debris field that surrounded the planet, remnants of their early space exploration efforts. "They're messy, wasteful, and incredibly resilient," Nix mused. "A dangerous combination." His communication crystal pulsed with an incoming message from the High Council. Nix touched it gently, and Counselor Vex's holographic form materialized before him. "Captain Voss, your preliminary report has caused quite a stir," the counselor began, her scales shifting through various shades of concern. "Are you certain about these findings?" "Absolutely, Counselor. The humans represent a potential threat unlike anything we've encountered. Their rate of advancement is exponential, and their military capabilities are already approaching Level 3 status. If we wait another decade, they might surpass us entirely." There was a long pause as the counselor processed this information. "Then we have no choice. The High Council has reached a decision. We cannot risk allowing such an unpredictable species to join the galactic community. Prepare your findings for full review. The Council will be dispatching the First Fleet within the month." Nix felt his scales pale. "Counselor, with all due respect, a preemptive strike against Earth would be the safest course of action." "Captain," Vex cut him off. "We've seen what happens when aggressive species achieve faster than light travel. The Morgoth Wars nearly destroyed half the galaxy. We cannot risk another such conflict." As the communication ended, Nix turned back to the viewport, watching Earth rotate serenely below. In all his years of first contact missions, he had never felt such a complex mix of emotions: fear, fascination, and something else he couldn't quite identify. Perhaps it was respect. Zara, he called out, not taking his eyes off the planet. Begin compiling all our data. But mark this in the official record. I believe we're about to make a terrible mistake. The Starweaver continued its silent orbit around Earth, its crew unaware that their observations would soon trigger a conflict that would reshape the galaxy forever. Below them, billions of humans went about their daily lives, blissfully unaware that they had been judged and found too dangerous to exist. Admiral James Blackwood stood on the bridge of the EDF Defiant, his weathered face illuminated by the tactical displays surrounding him. The massive viewscreen before him showed the approaching Rachnerry fleet, 300 ships strong, their crystalline hulls glinting like deadly jewels against the backdrop of space. "Status report," he commanded, his voice steady despite the gravity of the situation. Lieutenant Rodriguez, his tactical officer, responded without taking her eyes off her console. "New Eden Colony has begun emergency evacuations, sir, but they'll need at least 2 more hours to get everyone off-world. The Rachnerry fleet will arrive in 30 minutes. Blackwood's jaw tightened. 2 weeks ago, humanity had been celebrating the discovery of alien life. Now, they were fighting for their very survival. The first attack had come without warning, a surgical strike that had wiped out Earth's primary defense satellites within minutes. "All ships, battle formations," he ordered. "Priority is buying time for the evacuation. Deploy the Aegis defense grid." The bridge crew moved with practiced efficiency as the 40 ships under his command spread out in a defensive screen before New Eden. The colony, humanity's first extrasolar settlement, housed over 2 million civilians. Blackwood had no intention of letting it become humanity's first extrasolar cemetery. "Sir," called out Commander Wei from the sensor station, "we're detecting unusual energy signatures from the Rachnerry fleet. They're similar to the patterns we recorded during the Earth attack." Blackwood nodded grimly. "They're charging their main weapons. All ships, activate point defense systems. Remember your training. These bastards may have better tech, but we've got something they don't." "What's that, sir?" asked a young ensign. "Nothing left to lose." The first salvos from the Rachnerry fleet lit up space like artificial supernovas. Their energy weapons were beyond anything humanity had ever developed, but Blackwood had spent the last 2 weeks studying their attack patterns. The Rachnerry were methodical, predictable, and that would be their undoing. "Execute Maneuver Delta 7, he commanded. The human fleet split apart in a carefully choreographed dance, allowing the Rachnerry's initial barrage to pass harmlessly through their formation. "Return fire, all batteries." The EDF ships answered with a devastating barrage of their own. While their weapons might have been technologically inferior, humanity had perfected the art of warfare through centuries of fighting among themselves. The Rachnerry's elegant shields were designed to deflect energy weapons, not the thousands of tungsten rods now accelerated to relativistic speeds by human mass drivers. "Multiple impacts confirmed," Rodriguez reported, a hint of satisfaction in her voice. 3 enemy capital ships showing significant damage, but the victory was short-lived. The Rachnerry fleet adjusted their tactics, their ships moving in complex patterns that spoke of centuries of space combat experience. Energy beams lanced out, catching 2 human destroyers in rapid succession. The ships disappeared in silent explosions, taking their crews with them. "Sir, evacuation status?" Blackwood asked, keeping his voice level despite the loss of his people. 60% complete. Still need another hour." The Admiral watched as another wave of Rachnerry ships moved into position. Their formation was perfect, almost beautiful in its deadly precision. But something about it nagged at him, a pattern he'd seen before. Commander Wei analyzed their fleet movements. Compare them to historical Earth naval battles. Wei's fingers flew across his console. "Sir, their formations, they're almost identical to classical naval warfare tactics. They're fighting a 3-dimensional battle with 2-dimensional thinking." A slight smile crossed Blackwood's face. "Exactly. All ships, prepare to execute Maneuver Omega. Let's show them how humans wage war in space. The human fleet suddenly broke formation, their ships moving in seemingly chaotic patterns. To the Rachnarii, it must have looked like madness, ships diving above and below the plane of battle, using New Eden's moon for gravitational assists, accelerating and decelerating in ways that defied conventional tactical doctrine. Multiple enemy ships losing targeting locks, Rodriguez reported. Their predictive algorithms can't keep up with our randomized movements. The battle raged for another 20 minutes, a deadly dance of energy beams and kinetic strikes. The human fleet took heavy losses, but they gave as good as they got. For every EDF ship destroyed, they claimed 2 Rachnarii vessels. Evacuation status, Blackwood demanded, gripping his command chair as another near-miss rocked the Defiant. Final transports launching now, sir. But Rodriguez's voice trailed off. But what, Lieutenant? The colony's reactor. They couldn't initiate a proper shutdown. It's going critical. Blackwood looked at the tactical display, then at the massive Rachnarii fleet still bearing down on them. A plan formed in his mind. The kind of desperate gambit that had defined humanity's history. All ships, fall back to Rally Point Beta, he ordered. And send this message to New Eden Control. Don't bother with the reactor shutdown. Set it to overload. The next few minutes were a blur of action. The human fleet retreated, drawing the Rachnarii armada closer to New Eden. The aliens, sensing victory, pressed their advantage, exactly as Blackwood had hoped. When New Eden's reactor detonated, the explosion was visible from Earth. The colony, along with 30% of the Rachnarii fleet, disappeared in a miniature sun of human making. As the survivors regrouped at the rally point, Blackwood received word that the evacuation had been successful. They'd lost the colony, but saved its people, and in doing so, proved that humanity wouldn't go quietly into the night. Send word to Earth, he ordered. Tell them we've learned how they fight, and tell them to prepare for what comes next. This was just the beginning. Dr. Rashida Hassan hadn't slept in 3 days, but she barely noticed. The holographic displays surrounding her workstation at the Luna Defense Research Facility pulsed with data streams, each one representing another attempt to crack the puzzle of Rachnarii shield technology. A half-empty cup of cold coffee floated nearby in the low gravity, forgotten hours ago. Running simulation 2847, announced the facility's AI. Calculating results. Rashida watched as the virtual particle streams collided with the theoretical shield matrix she'd designed. For a moment, it seemed to hold, then the entire simulation collapsed in a cascade of failure warnings. Damn it, she muttered, pushing away from her workstation. The movement sent her drifting toward the observation window, where Earth hung like a jewel against the black velvet of space. 3 months had passed since the Battle of New Eden, and humanity was running out of time. Her comm unit chimed. Dr. Hassan. Came Admiral Blackwood's voice. Please tell me you have good news. I'm close, Admiral. The Rachnarii shields operate on principles we never even considered. They don't just deflect energy. They redirect it through higher dimensional space. It's brilliant, really. If we could just... Doctor, Blackwood interrupted gently. We lost contact with Proxima Centauri an hour ago. A Rachnarii fleet is headed there now. Rashida felt her blood run cold. Proxima Centauri was humanity's largest off-world colony, home to over 5 million people. How long? 12 hours at most. Whatever you're working on, we need it now. As the communication ended, Rashida turned back to her workstation with renewed determination. She'd been approaching this all wrong, trying to replicate the Rachnarii technology exactly. But humans had always excelled at taking existing ideas and transforming them into something new. Begin new simulation, she commanded. But this time, let's try something different. Meanwhile, in the depths of Rachnarii space, Commander Thala stood before the High Council, her scales shifting between shades of doubt and determination. The chamber's crystalline walls amplified her words as she spoke. "We've made a terrible mistake," she declared. "The humans, they're not what we thought. Every defeat makes them stronger. Every loss teaches them something new. She paused, searching for the right words. "They're adapting." Counselor Vex's scales flushed with anger. "They're dangerous, Commander. The destruction of New Eden proved that. They turned their own colony into a weapon." "Yes," Thiele agreed, "to save their people. Everything they do, every desperate measure they take, is to protect their own. We attacked them without provocation, and still they've offered to negotiate 3 times. "Weakness," growled General Dax Ven, his massive form dominating the council chamber. "They seek to delay while they build their forces. The attack on Proxima Centauri will crush their spirit once and for all." Thiele's scales paled. She hadn't known the attack was already underway. In that moment, she made a decision that would change the course of the war. Back at Luna Base, Rashida's eyes snapped open as her latest simulation completed. She'd been dozing at her workstation when the results came in, but now she was fully alert. "It worked," she whispered, then louder, "It worked. Get me Admiral Blackwood immediately." The Admiral's hologram appeared within seconds. "Tell me." "We can't match their shield technology directly," Rashida explained, her words tumbling out in excitement. "But we can use it against them. I've designed a system that doesn't try to stop their weapons. It catches them, cycles the energy through a localized quantum loop, and sends it back amplified." "How soon can you have a prototype?" "The principles are sound. With a full engineering team, maybe 6 hours. But Admiral, we've never built anything like this." The first test could blow up in our faces, Blackwood finished. "But if we do nothing, Proxima Centauri dies. Begin production immediately." 6 hours later, Rashida watched as engineering crews mounted the prototype device on the EDF Defiant. The massive ship had been rechristened Humanity's Best Hope, its hull bristling with the new quantum reflection arrays. That's when the emergency transmission came in. Not from Proxima Centauri, but from deep in Racnary space. Commander Thiella's crystalline face appeared on screens across the human fleet. "I don't have much time," she said, her scales showing patterns of urgency and fear. "The attack fleet. It's larger than you know. They're not just planning to take Proxima Centauri. They mean to push straight through to Earth. But I can help. I can give you their command codes, their tactical protocols, everything." For a moment, there was absolute silence on the bridge of the Defiant. Then Admiral Blackwood spoke. "Why would you help us?" "Because this war is wrong," Thiele replied. "And because I've seen enough death. The High Council, they're afraid. Afraid of change. Afraid of anything they can't control. But humanity has shown me something different. Adaptation, growth, the courage to face the unknown. We should be learning from you, not trying to destroy you." Rashida looked at her untested defense system, then at the tactical display showing the massive Racnary fleet approaching Proxima Centauri. With Thiele's intelligence and the new quantum reflection technology, they might have a chance. But there was no time for further testing, no time for doubts. "Admiral," she said, "the arrays are ready, but you should know. The calculations suggest a 60% chance of catastrophic failure." Blackwood's weathered face broke into a grim smile. "Doctor, humanity was built on worse odds than that. All ships prepare for battle. Let's show the Racnary what happens when you back humans into a corner." The space around Proxima Centauri erupted in a display that would have put Earth's greatest fireworks shows to shame. The Racnary fleet, nearly 500 ships strong, emerged from faster-than-light travel directly into Admiral Blackwood's trap. "All ships, execute pattern Sigma," Blackwood commanded from the bridge of the Defiant. "Activate quantum reflection arrays on my mark." Dr. Hassan stood beside him, her fingers dancing across a holographic control panel as she made final adjustments to her untested system. The entire bridge crew held their breath as the first Racnary energy weapons lanced out toward the human fleet. "Arrays online," Rashida announced. quantum field stable, ready for energy absorption. The Rachnarii beams struck the Defiant's new defensive system. For a terrifying moment, the ship's hull groaned under the strain. Then something remarkable happened. The energy didn't just dissipate. It curved, twisted, and shot back toward the attacking vessels with twice the intensity. Direct hits on multiple enemy vessels, Lieutenant Rodriguez reported, unable to keep the excitement from her voice. Their shields are failing. In the Rachnarii fleet, General Dax Venn watched in horror as the impossible unfolded before him. How? He demanded. How are they doing this? His tactical officer's scales shifted through patterns of confusion and fear. Unknown, General. They've somehow weaponized our own energy attacks against us. Our standard combat protocols are worse than useless. They're actively harmful. Venn's scales darkened with rage. Launch all fighters. Switch to kinetic weapons. I want those human ships reduced to. He never finished the sentence. A quantum-enhanced energy beam, originally fired from his own fleet, cut through his flagship's bridge. The massive vessel exploded, taking the Rachnarii command structure with it. Meanwhile, Commander Thela was making good on her promise. From her stolen scout ship, she transmitted critical tactical data directly to the human fleet. Their backup command protocols are activating, she warned. They'll try to regroup around the secondary flagship. Target these coordinates. The battle raged for hours. The Rachnarii fleet, for the first time in their history, found themselves completely outmaneuvered. Every strategy they attempted was countered before it could fully develop. Every formation they tried to establish was broken apart by precisely targeted strikes. But the human victory came at a cost. Even with the new defensive technology and Thela's intelligence, the sheer firepower of the Rachnarii fleet took its toll. Dozens of human ships were lost, their crews making the ultimate sacrifice to protect their colony. Status report, Blackwood demanded as another explosion rocked the Defiant. Quantum arrays operating at 30% capacity, Rashida replied, her hands moving frantically across her controls. We've lost too many emitters. We can't maintain the defensive screen much longer. Sir, Rodriguez cut in. Enemy fleet is down to 200 ships, but they're regrouping for another push. They're targeting the colony directly. Blackwood looked at the tactical display, his mind racing through options. That's when Commander Thela's voice came through again, this time heavy with resolve. Admiral, she said, I can end this. My ship's engine core, if I can get it into the middle of their formation. Commander, no, Blackwood started to protest. But Thela cut him off. My people started this war out of fear. Let me end it with courage. Her scout ship was already accelerating toward the heart of the Rachnarii fleet. Besides, I study your history. Isn't sacrifice in service of others one of humanity's highest virtues? Before anyone could respond, Thela's ship punched through the Rachnarii formation. The explosion that followed rivaled the birth of a small star. When the light faded, less than 50 Rachnarii ships remained, and they were already retreating. In the aftermath, as rescue operations began and damage reports flooded in, Rashida found Admiral Blackwood staring out the bridge viewport. The quantum reflection technology worked better than we hoped, she said softly. With some refinements, we cooled. We could take the fight to them, Blackwood finished. Push all the way to their homeworld. He turned to face her. But that's not what Commander Thela sacrificed herself for, is it? Rashida shook her head. No, she showed us there are Rachnarii who can change, who can see beyond their fear. Maybe there's a better way to end this war. Blackwood nodded. Get me Earth Command. It's time to send the Rachnarii a message, but not the one they're expecting. As the Defiant began its journey back to Earth, the stars seemed a little less silent, a little less cold. Humanity had proven itself not just through its ability to fight, but through its capacity to inspire change, even in those who had come to destroy them. The war wasn't over, but its nature had fundamentally shifted. In the debris field that had once been a Rachnarii battle fleet, A single crystalline data core floated intact. Within it, Commander Thiela's final transmission waited to be found. To those who fear humanity, don't. Fear instead what you might become without their example to light the way. The Great Hall of the Racnari High Council had never hosted aliens before. Now, Admiral Blackwood stood at its center, his uniform pristine, his posture straight despite the wounds that still hadn't fully healed. Dr. Hassan stood beside him, her quantum reflection technology miniaturized into a defensive shield that hummed softly around them both. The crystalline walls reflected countless Racnari faces, their scales shifting through patterns of fear, curiosity, and, in some cases, hope. Counselor Vex's voice echoed through the chamber. "You stand before us after destroying half our fleet, infiltrating our defenses, and turning one of our most trusted commanders against us," she said, her scales rippling with complex emotions. "And yet you come not with weapons, but with words. Why?" Blackwood's voice carried clearly through the vast space. "Because Commander Thiela's sacrifice showed us something important. That change is possible, that understanding is possible, even between species as different as ours." He gestured to the holographic display that Dr. Hassan had set up. It showed the Battle of Proxima Centauri, but from a different perspective, highlighting not just the combat, but the moments of choice, the instances where both sides had shown restraint, had chosen preservation over destruction. "You attacked us because you feared what we might become," Blackwood continued. "You saw our capacity for violence, our rapid technological growth, our adaptability, and you saw a threat. But you missed something crucial about humanity." Dr. Hassan stepped forward, activating another hologram. This one showed Earth's history, not just the wars and conflicts the Racnari had focused on, but the moments of peace, of scientific achievement, of cultural expression. "We don't just adapt to survive," she explained. "We adapt to thrive, to understand, to create. Yes, we can be violent. Yes, we can be dangerous, but we can also be this." The hologram shifted to show the aftermath of the Proxima Centauri battle. Human ships rescuing Racnari survivors, providing medical aid to their wounded, preserving and treating their unique biology with careful precision. A murmur ran through the council chamber. Counselor Vex's scales shifted to a pattern that indicated deep thought. "And what would you propose?" she asked. "How can we trust a species that could destroy us?" "The same way we're trusting you right now," Blackwood replied. "By standing here, in your stronghold, offering peace despite our losses, by choosing to see possibility instead of threat." He produced a small crystalline device, Commander Thiela's final data core, recovered from the debris field. "Your own people showed us the way. Thiela believed our species could learn from each other. She gave her life not just to save us, but to save you from the path of fear you'd chosen." The data core activated, projecting Thiela's final message throughout the chamber. As her words echoed through the space, scales throughout the chamber began shifting to new patterns: acceptance, understanding, possibility. Counselor Vex rose from her seat, her own scales settling into a pattern that hadn't been seen in the council chamber for generations. "Hope. Perhaps," she said slowly, "we have been embracing stagnation in the name of stability. Perhaps it is time for change." The negotiations that followed lasted weeks, but they laid the groundwork for something unprecedented: the Galactic Concordat. Not just a peace treaty, but a framework for cooperation, for shared growth and mutual defense. 1 year later, Admiral Blackwood stood on the observation deck of the newly christened Thiela Station, a joint human Racnari research facility orbiting Earth. Dr. Hassan was there too, working side by side with Racnari scientists to combine their shield technology with her quantum reflection principles. "Did you ever think it would end like this?" she asked, watching a Racnari ship dock smoothly alongside a human vessel. "End." Blackwood smiled. "Doctor, this isn't an ending. Look there." He pointed to a group of human and Racnari children touring the station, their faces and scales alike showing excitement as they learned about each other's cultures and sciences. This is just the beginning. We showed them our strength, yes, but more importantly, we showed them our heart. And in doing so, we helped them rediscover their own. As if to emphasize his point, a new ship appeared on the horizon, the first vessel of its kind, built with both human and Rachnerry technology. Its name, written in both languages across its hull, gleamed in the starlight. Tomorrow's dawn. The silent stars weren't so silent anymore. They rang with the sound of two species learning, growing, and building together. Humanity had proven itself not through conquest, but through the very traits that had once made the Rachnerry fear them: their adaptability, their determination, and their endless capacity for change. In the end, it wasn't humanity's weapons that had won the war. It was their humanity itself.